In the heart of West Africa, during a time of crisis and uncertainty, one man spoke a truth so sharp and so simple that it still cuts through global politics today. A warning, a lesson, and a call to action. ThomasSankara, President of Burkina Faso from 1983 to 1987, looked at the world around him and declared, "He who feeds you controls you." These were not just words, they were a diagnosis of a deeper problem, the problem of dependency. And they became the foundation of one of Africa's most ambitious quests for food, self-sufficiency, and national dignity. When Sankara took power in 1983, Burkina Faso was one of the poorest countries in the world. Its people were trapped by cycles of drought, famine, and foreign dependency. For years, long lines formed to receive food aid, sacks of grain, powdered milk, and canned goods shipped from abroad. To many, it looked like charity, but Sankara saw something different. He saw that a nation fed by others will always be influenced by others. Aid was not neutral. It shaped decisions. It shaped politics. It shaped power. To Sankara, consumption was not just simply an economic activity. It was political. It was strategic, and it was deeply tied to freedom. So he issued a challenge to his country. Burkina Faso must produce what it consumes and consume what it produces. This was the beginning of what he called productive consumption, a philosophy rooted in dignity, discipline, and collective responsibility. He set out to rebuild the agricultural foundations of the country. Villages dug irrigation canals and built dams with their own hands. Communities planted millions of trees to fight the advancing desert. Farmers were given tools, training, and support. And for the first time in the nation's history, women became central leaders in production, farming, and economic decision-making. From a microeconomic perspective, Sankara's reforms shaped household incentives. Families no longer viewed food as something delivered from outside. Their welfare now depended on their own production. Every extra acre cultivated, every canal dug, and every tree planted raised household productivity and food security. This created a positive feedback loop. Greater production improves consumption, while strengthens welfare, which further encouraged production. Productive consumption also reduced household vulnerability to shocks. A family that depended on imported grain from foreign aid is exposed to global price changes, shortages, and political conditions. A family that produces its own food is far more resilient. Sankara understood that household-led stability is the foundation of national strength. Another critical dimension was women's labor participation. By empowering women as full economic actors, Burkina Faso gained an immediate expansion in productive labor supply. This led to household level spillovers, high incomes, better nutrition, and improved allocation of time and resources. Women's empowerment was not only social policy, it was an economic growth strategy. At the community level, Sankara championed massive corrective projects. These were classic public goods like irrigation, reforestation, soil restoration, the kinds of investment no single household can provide alone, but everyone benefited from. These shared efforts increased the return to individual farming, raising productivity across the entire villages. Corrective action strengthened both the land and the people who depended on it. In just 4 years, the impact was extraordinary. Burkina Faso achieved food sufficiency, harvests rose, markets filled with local foods, communities became more confident and more productive and more united. A country once dependent on foreign grain was now feeding itself through the strength of its own people. Today, Sankara's message is more relevant than ever. Across Africa and the global south, nations still struggle with imported food, aid dependency, and externally driven development. Sankara reminds us that aid may relieve suffering in the short term, but long-term dependency weakens nations. Sovereignty begins in the soil. Dignity grows from what a people produce with their own hands. Liberation is not just a political slogan, it is a daily economic practice. ThomasSankara was assassinated in 1987, but his ideas did not die with him. His philosophy of productive consumption lives on as a powerful lesson. Real freedom comes from producing what you need, because in the end, he who feeds you controls you, but he who feeds himself controls his future. This is Sankara's legacy, and it still speaks to us today.